This is Global Digest think tank group. You can see behind me. We are doing podcast conversation with different experts from around the world to share our opinion and helping unprivileged people around the world. And I've been talking maybe last few days with one of Brazilian professor. We're talking about BRICS. BRICS member Brazil, South Africa, India, China, Russia, I don't know you're more interested or you don't involve in politics, but South Africa is member of BRICS. So Brazilian, they feel not much benefit of being a member of BRICS, and BRICS is a kind of ideal. They cannot do any productive thing for any regional geopolitics or global issue. It's more about China and Russia block instead of doing some potential like academic development or any social development for the society. They did not provide anything for international society. So do you have any South Africa position, or what is the role of South Africa, and what is your expectation about BRICS?
In South Africa,
or before we start, you can briefly introduce where you are right now and what is your background, so our audience can know you well.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Yannick Pretorius. I am in South Africa in a town called Standerton. It is on the Mpumalanga Highveld. It's an industrial area with quite a bit of coal mines, a little bit of gold. And then we also have Sasol, which is an international company. It started as a South African company, but currently it's an international company where we use coal to produce oil, and from that oil, then your petroleum products again. Now, I am involved in the technical and vocational education sector. Yeah. I am currently the deputy principal in the Department of Higher Education at a TVET college called Gert Sibande TVET College. Which would be known as a technical and vocational or community college.
It's government college?
That's correct, yes. It's a fully subsidized, government subsidized institution. We have about 11,000 students with a staff complement of just under 700 staff members. I am responsible currently for the corporate services. That would include all your HR, your IT, labor, human resource development, name it, everything that has to do with the corporate services component of the college. I am originally a trained primary school teacher, started teaching 32 years ago, the primary school in this area. And I've been involved with the college and technical and vocational training for the last 18 years. Yeah, it would actually be in a month's time, I would be here 18 years with the college. So our focus is community development, community upliftment, training students specifically for the industries in this environment. So we have a very strong focus on your engineering components. So we train them for to be absorbed into your engineering fields, but as well as your supporting, your office administration, your finance component. Then we have marketing. That's always part of your mix for any big business. And then also transport. We are very close to a main line from Gauteng that would go down to Swaziland, Lesotho, etc. A huge amount of freight that's being moved up and down. Well, where I'm sitting, that big highway line is about 5 kilometers away from me. So we are also focusing on that. So our main focus is then on the Gertsebande region. It's about 1/3 of the Mpumalanga province. We have a campus in each of the big sites, and then we also very, very strongly focus on training of artisan development. We have a center that is also just focusing on that, and we are training 12 different artisan areas in that. So yeah, that's basically where I'm involved in and the interest of Gertsebande TVET College.
It's very good, your background activity. So as I asked, the original question is, how is your expectation from BRICS? How South Africa position on BRICS, as much as you know, how your view on that?
When we look at it from an educational standpoint, and especially from the TVET sector, our relationships within BRICS, within higher education, lies very strongly with China.
I see.
China really has some very, very strong programs in assisting the college. We work with a gentleman, Dr. Liu, here in South Africa, that is the chairperson of the China Cultural Center. And they are extremely involved with us as a college in training, support, and then we also have exchange programs with them where they would take our students, select a few of them, and they would then go to China for a period of 18 months to 24 months, where they would then go to either a college or a university in China, and then after that they would be doing a practical exposure. So they would go and work in industry. And this is all sponsored by the Chinese government. They would come back, and as you know, in South Africa, we have a huge component of Chinese businesses. And then also they try to place these students then in a permanent work environment within some of these Chinese businesses, some of your very big businesses. Another country that we do have a little bit of partnership with will be India. There is very similar situations between South Africa and India, so there is a little bit of cooperation. But Brazil, there was a few exchanges, a few visits between Brazil and South Africa, but that is basically that. So if I should say the involvement of BRICS, where BRICS comes in, very strong cooperation between China, South Africa on higher education. The other countries, very, very little, not really a lot of involvement and a lot of growth, which is very sad because we are all in a very similar economic situation, a very similar training situation. I am currently busy with my Doctor of Business Administration, where I am focusing on the impact of our curriculum, what we are teaching and how we are teaching students in preparation for the 4th, 5th, and subsequent industrial revolutions.
Sure.
And in my research, I must say that India has outstanding practices. Brazil also has outstanding practices. You must see some of the equipment, the facilities in Brazil, their systems. It is outstanding. So it should be a much closer working relationship to actually boost BRICS. Because at the end, with the changes that are coming and the changes within the expectations of your industrial revolutions, one country is not going to be able to do everything alone. You will need to have a very strong cooperative
international cooperation.
Exactly. And the BRICS countries are all in a very similar situation if we look at it economically, your social impact, your social structures, etc., etc., etc. So yes, it's lacking hugely, and it's going to impact negatively going forward.
I see. So how is South Africa, GDP and South Africa economy? It is, are you consider it's developed country or it's still developing country?
No, South Africa is definitely still a developing country.
I see.
South Africa has a huge backlog in development. You see, you become a first country or a developed country, first world country, when you are able to manufacture and be at that point where economically you are self-sustaining. Unfortunately, South Africa is still at the point where we export the majority of our raw products, and we import the majority of the produced goods. Last year, I read, and it was absolutely shocking, that South Africa, with all of our natural resources, would, if you go into the Mpumalanga area, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of hectares of trees, your pine trees, blue gum trees, etc. We do not even produce enough toothpicks for South Africa. We import toothpicks, but we have this wealth of resources. So, and that's part of what we need to look at in the TVET sector, in the development. We need to take South Africa to a developed country. We have that capacity, but we do not have the skill at the moment. And the reality is we are still struggling to bring many of our young children to a point to read and write.
Why South Africa was not able to, upgrade? You have a good relationship with European and America, if you a good relationship, you can get a lot of technology support or cooperation between developed country. So South Africa can be closer to developed country, right? So when is expected South Africa will be developed country?
Okay, let me just take one step back. It's a very interesting issue that you are raising. Yes. One thing we need to be very careful for is to think that the moment that you give technology, things are changing drastically.
Right.
You must remember where South Africa is coming from. We have 80-90% of the South African population who went to schools that was not up to standard for many reasons. We all know the history of South Africa. Okay. Now, it takes time to take a generation and bring them into a world where technology is usable. As I've said, we are still struggling with some areas within South Africa and some schools where your quality comes to a point where a student can read and write properly. We have done a test a couple of years ago with our students, and we decided to do a trial in taking all textbooks away, giving tablets, and go online. It was a massive failure.
I see.
Because you need to have a skill to work with technology.
Right.
It's a skill that needs to be developed. And I do not develop that skill with my student. I develop that skill with my staff member. So that's why I am running, over the last couple of years, a very, very strong program in Getsebande TVET College, where I am empowering my staff members, my lecturing staff specifically, to be able to teach with technology.
I see.
You need to train people. People didn't get that as a skill. And that filters down, and we are starting to see the change. Now, we are a college that is very fortunate and privileged when it comes to resources. We do not have a shortage of computers. I'm speaking offhand, but on our 7 campuses, each campus is running with at least about 600 computers on each campus. So we have that technology. And that is why you need to remember as well that currently, if you go to what we call a township school, a school that is within a township, a very, very poor area, where they are struggling to get a textbook, your source of information becomes your teacher, or your teacher. If you go to your more affluent areas, you will see that we are starting to see people, the use of technology. I'm going to use an example. My own grandson, I have a grandson of 10 years old. I found him a year ago sitting in his room playing Xbox. He has a cell phone next to him. He discovered Bixby. Then he would sit there playing, say, Bixby, give me an interesting fact. So he's starting to understand how to get information from technology. Once we have, apologies for that, once we are at the point where we can give our students, our children in South Africa and adults as well, that skill to get information from technology, you can start working on other skills. And that is where we will then be able to take South Africa from a developing country into a developed country. It's going to take quite a bit of time. My personal projection is we need at least 1 generation. Look, the more and more young people we are getting in, knowing technology, knowing to work with technology, know how to find the information, how to work with that information, and then go out and make the changes, we will see that difference. So if we really push, let's say the next 25 to 30 years, we can see a huge, a massive, massive change. There's a very interesting article that was written by a professor at the University of Stellenbosch that actually says that the 5th Industrial Revolution, so that South Africa can be one of the front runners in the 5th Industrial Revolution if we can catch up with the 4th Industrial Revolution. South Africa is very, very far behind in the 4th Industrial Revolution. But to change the economic situation in South Africa, we need to change the way in which our students learn, in which we engage with technology, and the way in which we then implement technology in changing South Africa. I'm very, very positive about South Africa.
Do you think it is obstacle for multicultural in South Africa because of black or white? It is any obstacle for developing such kind of education, or just simply something wrong, or what's wrong?
You know what? Look, you will always have, throughout the world, you will have an issue between race.
Sure.
If you choose to see race. Okay. It's so interesting. I actually had this discussion with my wife a while ago, actually last week. I'm not the most active biker, but I like getting onto my mountain bike every now and then. And we have, where I'm staying, this nice park area. But some of them are single tracks. You know, you can't pass 2 people on that track. But if you just show consideration and you show good manners, morning, thank you for stepping out of the way for me to pass on my bike. Wait, let me wait for you this time. You're an elderly person coming with something you are carrying. Let me wait for you. That falls away. But if you are going to go out and be arrogant, think you are better, and not willing to listen to anyone else, there are going to be tensions. In our management, I'm part of the executive management of the college. If we look at race, I'm the only white person in the college's executive management. But we have such an incredible relationship. We had a birthday of one of our staff members on Friday. We had coffee, we had cake, and afterwards I said to someone, it was the nicest chat and just spending time that any of us had in how long. It's not about race. It's not about color. It's far more an issue in South Africa of people's attitude, people not willing to adjust. South Africa is a very, very different country to 30 years ago. Very different. But you have a choice in life. Am I going to adjust? Am I going to work for the better of a country? Or am I going to try and make myself the most important person? And if you go into the normal community, you see, I'm going to say 90% plus of people has the attitude of we are accepting each other, we are working with each other. Yes, we have different languages, we have different cultures, all of those things, but we are still South Africans. You do get people who want to divide. You do get people that's going to try and get their own benefit. You do get politicians that writes the race card because it is controversial. Controversy makes you visible and it's advertising. But on the ground, South Africa is really not a country where people are at war with each other.
I was surprised, compared to America or Europe, British, they are cozy between black and white, and they are very good cooperation, and they develop political system and social economic that made them become top in the world, like America. They are very good, system between black and white. Now even UK, the white people, they give up for prime minister position, because they want to cozy and cooperation between white and black. But I feel South Africa was not coming out like that, similar to America or British or many other countries. You have still some kind of a delaying or unproductive about racial issue or any social economic development. Or I don't want to blame the white people feet or the black people feet. I don't know who is main responsible. Maybe both black and white in South Africa failed to make cozy development and to become, success similar to America, I guess, in terms of social culture, racial issue in South Africa. That is my view. I'm not sure it may be wrong or it may be right.
Look, there are many issues. I want to take a step back to even before apartheid in South Africa started. If you go back to about 1899, 1902, there was a war in South Africa that was called the British Anglo-Boer War. That is where Britain came into South Africa, and there was a war between what was then the Boer republics. It was the South African Republic and the Republic of the Orange Free State. And Britain came in, there was a war, they won the war, and we became a colony of Britain. Now, during that war, there was a process where that Britain had, which was called the scorched earth. They went to the farms, they burned the farms, killed the animals. Women, children were taken to concentration camps. Men were sent to out of the country to camps. Now, if you still look at your older people, late 70s, 80s, 90s, whose parents went through that, they don't like the
Right,
British.
right.
You understand? Because they came into South Africa, and this is what happened in South Africa. And if that didn't happen, then we would have been X, Y, and Z.
Of course,
Now,
you know, everywhere, even in America or any other country, they have history of conflict, black and white or different ethnic groups conflict. Like in Burma, we still have ethnic conflict. In many
exactly.
other country, ethnic conflict. But I don't know, it's very strong agony or, you know, strong historical looking back in South Africa society that make they don't want to cooperate or they are still hate each other or I don't know if
Now,
you have
if
such kind of attitude in South Africa, either black people or either white people in South Africa, it will be very difficult to cooperate or you know sitting together and working together.
now, but if I just can continue on this, now you need to
Right, right,
remember that you have a community that went through the apartheid system.
right.
Um, but you do have a younger component, your people up to 25, maybe 30, that didn't experience it like your older people. So you have
I
that
see.
older community that has that background. So we are starting to see that the younger people, as they are coming in, is not feeling the same way.
Sure.
Now, the second thing is people don't, especially the older people, do not. And when I'm saying older people, I'm talking about my own
You are
own,
also
own,
old
own
generation,
group.
right?
Well, I'm not 20 anymore. I'm
Right,
not 70, but I'm not 20. So you have a group of people that now starts talking to each other.
right,
And I start explaining the background, where I come from. Why did things happen? How did I experience it? And people
right.
are starting to open up. You do get people that carries a lot of hate. Now you know that one of the most controversial politicians in South Africa is Julius Malema. But he said something that opened a little bit of a glimpse on how he's feeling. He grew up with his grandmother,
Hmm.
and he one day spoke about how the security police came in, pulled her out of her bed, etc., etc. You understand? So you
See,
can understand in some cases where people have this very negative feelings.
I see.
But again, if you don't sit down, talk to each other and listen. Sometimes we talk too much and we don't listen enough. And listen to each other.
Same in
Then you
Burma.
become
Burmese
human
people,
beings.
Burmese people are not good in listening. You know, people, many other country, many experts from around the world, they gave any advice or a good idea to Burmese people. They are not good listening. You know, just one year coming and another year it's out. So it's happened in Burma.
Exactly. It's exactly. If we start listening and feeling and understanding, then it changes. If you
Right,
have empathy with someone where they are coming from, then you can start working together. And as an institution where I am, Hertzebandi TVET College, we are very fortunate. You do not have to be apologetic for being a black South African, a white South African, Indian South African, whatever the case may be. That's how you've
right,
been created. And that is what it is. We are all, in our institution where I'm working, Hertzebandi TVET College, we are proud of who we are, but we are also proud to be a South African institution. We are also proud that we work towards one specific goal. And we are
definitely.
proud that we are here to improve the lives. And once you have that common goal, you are comfortable with who you are comfortable with the people around you. You
Right,
see a massive change. And we joke. We can make a joke about white, we can make a joke. It's of course within. You are not in any way making someone feel negative or bad about themselves. Last week we were going to one of our sites, and we were using my vehicle. Now we are 5 people getting into my vehicle. And just as it would be, I'm white and the person sitting next to me is white. Actually, the principal that went with us said to the person, "Now you rather sit in front." So when we were in the car, I said, "Yeah, people are seeing us all South Africa. Whites are sitting in front." Because that was typically the situation. But that can be a joke because everyone is comfortable. Everyone understands. And if we are back in that situation, you understand. I'm telling you, it's a different world, and South Africa is a different world. South Africa has so much potential.
I see. Yeah, definitely. I see. You must be proud of South Africa, either white or black. Every country should be proud of their own country. Like American, black, white, they all are proud for America. You should not feel negative things like British or European. They do same. Definitely. I mean, South Africa is very much potential, but it should not be behind because of those social conflict or social behavior problem or any other internal unnecessary thing, which should be much easy way to solve in the country. It's happening in Burma. Social factor is one of big issue in any developing country. Like in our country, some are very extremist for on the base of race, religions, or on the base of ethnic. They are so extremist that prevented to forward development of the country. Now the military coup in Burma is simply they are, not willing to go forward for the country development, and they are only selfish for their own, you know, religious extremists or their own ethnicity extremists. That many developed countries we are facing for forwarding our development or to grow our country, either in economy or political. Or I think South Africa is much pretty good democracy, but I'm not sure the level of democracy is a liberal democracy or not yet liberal democracy in South Africa. But I'm sure you don't have dictator right now, right?
No, when it comes to democracy, South Africa is a very democratic country.
I see.
If I caught you correct, if you were breaking up, you were talking about the South Africa democracy.
you can share a bit about, because we are also comparing with many other countries, whether the country is authoritarian or the countries is developed democracy country. Even democracy, there are many flawed democracy in developing country. Many countries are not able to reach liberal democracy. Liberal democracy so far in academic finding is the best system of democracy in the world. Many we fail to reach liberal democracy in Asia or in Africa. If we reach liberal democracy, mean our living standard will also high, and our economy is also assumed it's already grow economy, because all are connected. Democracy, economy, social system is more or less interrelated. What is your democracy level?
Well, my view is that South Africa is a very democratic country. If you look at the processes in South Africa, if you look at the parliament, the functioning of parliament, if you look at just what happened very recently around our President Ramaphosa, he owns a farm, there were some issues. It ended up in Parliament. It's discussed in Parliament. There are reports that goes to Parliament. If you look at the day-to-day life in South Africa, it is a very, very participative process. You very rarely get a situation where someone is dealing with any situation in an autocratic way. It is being discussed. You get your time to give your input. You can reply, and then a decision is made. And the majority goes, but you have the opportunity to give your say in there. We have regular elections. We basically have elections every two and a half years. In one round of elections, it is for the national government, so your guys representing at parliamentary level, and then about 2.5 years, it's a 5-year term. In the middle of that term, then there are elections for your local and your provincial.
I see.
It is elective processes, and we've never had a process in South Africa where any election wasn't declared as free and fair by any institution coming to observe those. So when we look at it as a country where democracy, the majority rules, then definitely it's a very, very interesting time in South Africa politically. If you are following it very closely, we know that the ANC from 1994 had this huge majority. There are now talks about the general election that's coming in next year. Are we going to go into coalitions?
I see.
And there's no talk of, if ANC will lose their majority, there will be certain actions taken. People are, it's just not on the cards. It's on the cards of, if the majority says, a voter says, ANC is not the majority, which processes, how are things going to play out? No one knows if there's going to be, if the ANC doesn't get, is it going to be a coalition between the ANC and other parties? Is it going to be a push from the coalition parties to get the majority to be in government? We don't know. But in South Africa, it's always a thing of we will accept it. If you look at some of the municipalities where the ANC has lost the elections, it was a handover. Yes, of course, they are trying to get back into power through the proper processes, but it's never an issue of extremists coming in. It's not fighting. It's not saying we will not hand over power. It's always been handed over to the party that has won the election. Government continued within the political arena. They fight it. There's, they want to vote the mayor of that metropolitan area out, etc. But that is within. That's the democratic processes. South Africa is an extremely democratic country, right through, from bottom to top.
I see. So you are very confident about democracy in South Africa. There will be no such kind of military coup or, dictator will come out in South Africa. No chance, right? So it means
no.
You are,
no.
You are consolidated democracy in South Africa, but you are you are not
no
yet
dictatorship.
You are not yet a liberal democracy, although you are consolidated democracy. There are no chance of dictatorship, but
no,
not yet able to liberal democracy in terms of economic growth or living standard, human index or anything that's required to become liberal democracy. So, and most politics are controlled nowadays, probably maybe black population, because nowadays white population in South Africa is shrinking, I guess. So more black are controlling the country politics, not like 30 years ago. It's a white, a few people control politics. It's no
Yes.
more white control, right?
Look, we need to be very careful when we talk about black and white and control.
I understand.
Pre-1994, it was definitely a racial matter. Now, look, race is not going to disappear. We
No
are
more.
different races.
I see.
But you need to take the decision in South Africa. Am I going to be part of South Africa? Am I going to be comfortable to be an environment where the person that is the head of an institution, the person that is elected as the mayor, elected as the premier of the province, is a black person? If that's making you uncomfortable, then South Africa is not the place for you to be in.
Right.
Then you are part of an environment where race is driving you. We know what the situation is in South Africa. What is the race makeup of South Africa? White is plus minus 10%. Then Indian, your brown South Africans, etc., makes up, I would say, plus minus 4 to 5%. Let's say 80% is black South Africans. If that makes you uncomfortable, then go and look for a country where there's a majority white, if that makes you comfortable. But if you're a South African, then color doesn't matter. The moment that you see a person's heart, if you see a person's attitude, if you see what the person is all about, color falls away.
Right.
Color is not the deciding factor of a person's integrity. The integrity is the most important part. And if you are willing, and if you can look at that and not look at color, South Africa is the country for you. As a white South African, I often say to my fellow South Africans, and doesn't matter, white, black, Indian, doesn't matter who. If you are in South Africa and you are a white person and you cannot accept the situation in South Africa, if you can't work towards being a South African and accepting a person for a person, then go and look for a country. You know, we have the joke, we have many people that went out to Australia and so on. Then I say, go to Australia. If that's going to make you feel comfortable, then go there. But if you want to make a difference, if you really want to change a country, then you stay in South Africa. But then you work for the people. Then you do what is needed to uplift and grow the people in South Africa for the benefit of South Africa and not the benefit of a specific group. Of course, the majority of people, and I don't want to use the word in power, let me say, the people in the top management positions, it's still a very 50-50, but it's growing. It's becoming more and more African people. But you cannot expect that they make up 80% of the country's people, and you expect of them to be to have the minority in these positions. It's just not natural.
Sure. I mean, it's changing in South Africa a lot. I hope it will be more better liberal democracy. I hope, I pray for South Africa. So going back to education, I want to know, you have any cooperation or collaboration with America or Europe in terms of technology, supplying or sharing to South African people? They are willing to share or cooperate with South Africa.
Look, they are always willing to assist, but at this moment, when we look at sharing of technology, if we would call it sponsorships, whatever the case may be, there's not a specific program regarding technology. What I have to indicate where America is very, very involved in the TVET college sector specifically
I see.
is about student health and student wellness. They sponsor a lot of our student wellness programs. For example, HIV/AIDS awareness and many other issues. America is extremely involved with the college.
I see.
Then another area that they are starting to become more and more involved in is in educational management. A while ago, there was a definite or a program where some of the senior managers from the Department of Higher Education and Training went on, I think it was a 6 weeks or 8 week training engagement with America, where they are also assisting on those issues. And then Britain is very, very strongly involved in the higher education through the British Council, where we had exchange programs between colleges in South Africa and Britain. For example, Gatsabandi TVET College partnered at some point with 2 British colleges. Myself went to Wales on for some training and to a college in Cardiff. We were a group of about 15 South Africans. But that was interesting. That was a BRICS get together. We had people from India, from Brazil, from China, and we just didn't have someone from Russia there at that point. So Britain is very involved in the higher education sector as well, also through many other processes. But when you look at it as a higher education institution, it also very much depends on your management,
right,
in going out and creating those partnerships and those links. We should be very careful, and that's something in South Africa that people need to move away. We always sit and wait for government or the national department to get a specific cooperation going. We as colleges has the ability and we have the right to go out and look for partnerships and sponsorships in that regard as well. And as a college, we are also working with many international companies, or let me say quite a few, in dealing. We, for example, had an Ford from America sponsored us with engines, the latest technology for our mechanical training, what we call automotive repair and maintenance. They've sponsored 2 Ford buckies from America to the college, etc. So there are a lot of opportunities, but we just shouldn't sit back and wait for someone to do it for us.
So, I mean, you have a lot of people willing to cooperate and sharing and supporting South Africa, but the receiving countries, South Africa, are not good as much as the sponsor willing to help. They are, I mean, South Africa are not ready or not prepared for receiving very well. I guess something like that. And also, isn't that Russia or China within your BRICS group, they have also, at least they have good in military technology or a kind of this thing. Do they share within BRICS or any cooperation? I mean, you get, or I mean, either you sharing or they sharing to South Africa, either way.
Yeah, look, we have many engagements with China, and as I say, we've had quite a bit of sponsorships, and we've had quite a bit of, especially, well, the biggest is China. We had some from Britain, we had some from America, definitely. But China is by far the biggest
I see.
component of assisting South Africa in technology, in management, in training of our students, giving opportunities to our students, etc. Especially, well, the contact point in South Africa is the Chinese Cultural Institution, but definitely through China a lot. America also a little bit, but they are assisting a lot on more of your social component, and then Britain definitely as well on your management and your leadership component as well. There was a very big exchange program that ran for about 2 years on leadership of colleges, where we were also part of that. We had that they came to us and also they sent representatives to them. And it's not just a visit. There are definitely programs that continues through that as well.
Sure. Jenny, thank you very much for your experiences and sharing to our audience.